All right. Hello, Greater Philadelphia. I'm Sarah Timon. I'm here with Stacy Mitchell. We've got Nick behind the camera, and Tom will be here momentarily. You are listening to Toole Time Real Estate Radio here on WWDB 860 AM. We are streaming live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We have an exciting show here today, some good stuff to go over, and I think Stacy's going to hit it off.
Okay, so our first segment is going to be focused on some industry news here. We're going to give you some stats and data about the market. So our first, we're going to start out at pending home sales. So according to Redfin, pending home sales have risen to the highest level in a year, according to Redfin. So, but there's a little caveat to that, as always. Buyers backed out of the deals at the highest rate on record, too. So it's pretty interesting. So U.S. pending home sales rose 1% month over month in October to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 401,000, the highest level in a year. That's pretty exciting. Although pending sales fell 4.8% compared to October 2022. It's still the smallest annual decline in nearly 2 years. So here's a look at why pending home sales have picked up, according to Redfin. The number of existing homes listed increased in October, giving buyers more options to choose from. I think we've seen that. Mm-hmm. We've noticed that active listings or the total number of homes for sale rose to 1,412,404. To be exact, a 1.4% month-over-month increase. Sellers also cut prices or offered concessions to get to the closing table. And we've experienced that too, Sarah, I know, out in the field. According to Redfin, roughly 1 in 5, that's 20.8% of homes that sold in October, posted a price drop. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Especially from what we had experienced during COVID. Mm-hmm. And that is up 18.4% in September and down from 21.7% in October 2022. So about 1/3 of sellers offered concessions, such as money for repairs, closing costs, and or mortgage rate buydowns. And major life events, such as marriage, divorce, or new jobs, brought some new buyers back to the market. And some buyers were also eager to relocate to a more affordable place.
Yeah.
And since late October, mortgage rates have fallen slightly. Well, we saw a big drop in the past week and a half, and this is spurring an uptick in buyer demand. Mortgage applications rose once those rates dropped. Since rates have fallen lower in November, pending sales may post an even bigger increase this month. So What are you seeing out there, Sarah? What are your thoughts on all this information?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of the major life events, when those happen, you can kind of push things off a little bit if you're not feeling super confident about the market or ready to jump in. But at some point, as those life events occur, you have to do something there. I mean, I would say especially in the divorce category, you only want to be still, sharing a home with your soon-to-be ex or ex for so long. And for, the marriage piece, I think that a lot of times it's not uncommon for people to try to take money that they get from gifts and stuff when they get married to apply towards a home purchase or to be a piece of that puzzle. So as those life events occur, certainly, favorable or not, if you perceive it that way for what the current market conditions are, you got to do something. I have seen, a decent amount of price cuts on different properties. But as we've, I feel commented on every single week, you still can't expect that, especially if they are priced properly for the market. If they are, those are the homes that you're less likely to see a price cut. Also, certainly motivation of the seller is going to come into play there. How quickly do they need to get this sold? Is this going to be a piece that holds up them purchasing the next home? Do they have a contingency in place on a property that they are under contract on the buy end, and they have to get this house under contract by X date? That may motivate them to drop the price a little bit quicker. So But yeah, I have seen different price cuts. What about you? Is that kind of what you're seeing out there as well?
Wow, yeah, all really good points that I agree with, and especially every situation's different. Every seller's need to sell is different.
Yes.
So it really is dependent on that. But I have definitely seen that. I had clients take advantage of those opportunities, especially with inspections and trying to negotiate repairs. And I think it's really, really positive, although sellers might not be that happy about it. But it is the way the current market is.
Right.
You still have a couple of those unicorn properties that people are still waiving everything in our area.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, seeing some price adjustments and being able to negotiate things, it's been really, really positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Win-win on both sides for the most part. So while pending sales are on the upswing, the number of closed home sales continue trending down, indicating that home buyers are canceling deals at the last minute. Have you had any canceled contracts in the past month or two?
No. But I mean that makes sense that the more, the higher the number that go under contract, the more likely people are to, that some of those will fall through. But both on the list side and the buy side for my most recent transactions, fingers crossed.
Wow.
We're all holding together. What about you?
That is awesome. Yeah. Actually, I had a couple terminations. One was based on inspections.
Yeah.
And I think that situation is because the buyer sees that there's other opportunities out there too.
Right.
So they don't feel like they're so locked in.
Right. Like that if this one that they're under contract gets away, if they can't negotiate it out, like they're not like, well, now nothing else will ever be again.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
So sellers beware.
Right.
Buyers are feeling a little bit more empowered, which is a good thing. So, if the inspections come back and there can't be, a meeting of the minds there, they will be more apt to move on, the buyers, that is.
Yeah. Although actually, come to think of it, I would say for my 4 most recent transactions, 2 of those being list side, 2 of those being buy side. So like 50-50, no inspections.
Wow. Okay. So you haven't had to negotiate through that.
So yeah,
that's kind of nice sometimes.
I know.
Yeah.
Especially and both of them for different reasons. One of them because the home was in spectacular condition.
Okay.
And you could tell, not just from the seller's disclosure, but also then from the additional information that they provided. These were people who took very good care of their home, very well documented it, had been in it a long time. And yes, there always could be unknowns there, but we were competing against people that we knew were waiving the inspection. And then on the sales side, I think that we just said we didn't want inspections. And then, then you don't have that piece to negotiate out.
That's awesome. Sometimes that alleviates a lot of stress on for us and for the buyers and sellers in some cases. So we're seeing the uptick in inventory. Do you think we should be worried about the inventory gains that we're seeing in November? What's your thought on that?
I don't think so. I think that's kind of good news, right? It's more, I guess it depends on if you're the buyer, the seller who has the same home as a couple other ones that are up on the market. But I think it's positive. What about you?
I think so too. Absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, in our area, the inventory is still very, very low.
Right. Even if inventory comes up, we're still in a
very low.
Market. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a negative by any stretch. I think the more inventory we have, and as the rates continue to dip, I just see a little craziness in the future for the market. But it still has been very busy. I know our team has been extremely busy. I had so far a really great November.
Yeah.
So in our area, and real estate is local always. We always remind everybody that in our area, we're very fortunate that we still have a lot of activity in the market, and it's been very positive.
Right.
So what are you seeing out there as far as your rates? I know that a couple of weeks ago, we were ticking up to close to the 8% mark. People were very concerned. We felt like maybe they would go over the 8%. But then when the Fed made their big announcement and they kind of pivoted and indicated they weren't going to raise their basis point by the end of this year, that really affected the mortgage rates, and they dropped. Like in one day, it's like a stone. So they fell to 7%. And I noticed today they were coming in about 7%.
Right. So, but what's interesting there, I think, is that doesn't necessarily mean that's what somebody's going to get.
Yes.
There's all these different pieces that go in. So I know I recently had one where, rates are 7. This is great. And he wasn't, from the first place that we were kind of shopping around at, was not able to get that. And then, did some due diligence on his end, looked at a couple different options and was able to get a favorable rate. But just because it's being said this is the rate, again, just like every house is situational, every sell, like there's no one set formula in any transaction for like this is what gets it done.
You're absolutely right about that, for sure. On the flip side, I just had clients lock in to a 375, they told me.
6.375?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, it is an adjustable.
Okay.
But I don't know the terms of the adjustable. Like, is it a 5?
Right.
I'm assuming it was a 5, but it was really low. Let me see if I can pull up that number because I couldn't believe it.
Right.
I mean, they're super excited.
Is 7 the most common for adjustable? Like, I mean, I'm assuming the less years you have until it adjusts, potentially the lower your rate would be because you've got a little bit more risk there.
That's what I'm thinking. Now, it was at 6.25%.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
That's amazing.
So it is. So they were super, super excited. Yeah, it's an ARM, but I don't know. I don't know the details. I was assuming it was probably a 5-year because that's
right.
It might have been a little bit higher rate if it was a 7.
Right.
But so they were very excited. Me too. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, we're back in the low 6s. Wow.
Like, that's like an exciting one to be like, let me read your estimated closing costs and show you your savings.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So that was a positive, although their inspection came back with a failed septic. So, but we're gonna try to work through it. Right. This is what we're here for, navigating everyone through the process.
Right.
So Tom's here. Hey, Tom.
Yeah. Hello. If you have to travel anywhere today, add like an extra 45 minutes on. It was horrible traffic, but so you guys are talking about rates. Tell me, bring me up to speed. So we're talking about this pending home sales rise in that Redfin's reporting.
Yep.
So
exactly.
What do you think attributes to this? I mean, there's a lot of, we've got lower rates, right? We've got an 18.5% inventory increase year over year in the month's supply of homes that are available in the greater Philadelphia area. We've got this 39.1% of sellers have made a price adjustment. So I see part of this as this time last year we had kind of the same rates, but we didn't see the same sort of bounce in pending sales. There's a mindset in the market right now that people are just realizing this is what we're going to be dealing with if I need to transact. I don't know if that's what you're seeing in the field. I mean, I'm certainly, and there's folks that have just been waiting so long that I don't know if you can wait much longer. I mean, how long are you going to wait when you're like busting at the seams for your home? How long are you going to wait when you're downsizing and can't keep up with the property? I think part of that's what's happening as well. So, I mean, what are some of these contributing factors in the field that you ladies are seeing right now with your clients?
Life changes, job changes, people moving from different locations back here to be closer to family. And, when you get down to it, there are things that you're not going to necessarily wait around for the perfect interest rates, right?
Right.
People are more important than anything. So if you're all your family's here, and, you come to the realization the market's not going to change. I want to get back home to my family. You're just going to jump right in.
Right.
And like you said, Sarah, marriages, divorces. I mean, through COVID, it was absolutely horrible.
Right.
When people were experiencing those situations, especially divorce, and they couldn't move.
Right.
I mean, that was absolutely horrible.
Right.
So there are life changes and obviously job transfers that people are not going to wait.
Right.
They're not going to wait. They can't wait.
Yeah. I would say same thing. I mean, there's a combination of people that already have been waiting for, longer than they would like. And at this point, it's like, all right, it's time to do this. And yeah, those life events certainly you know, make these transactions continue to go through regardless of what, you know, is going on in the market. Yeah. So I'd say like a combination of a couple of those things.
And the other thing too is like people, if their leases are terminating or leases are coming to a close, and they, like Tom said, they've been waiting already, and say they re-signed up last year to wait for the interest rates to drop.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Your lease is going to come up for a renewal again. Are you going to do another year lease and waste money and pay 100% interest rate?
Right.
Or are you just going to take the plunge and get in?
Or I mean, I feel like there's also been the case for some where because they are still like motivated, they haven't re-signed a full year lease. They're paying more per month to do a month-to-month or a like 4-month or like a shorter term renewal for their lease. And, you know, that those weeks go by very quickly. And when you've got a small window there, I feel like it goes even faster.
I agree with that. I also, because this bump in inventory too, and it's not really, there's not more homes for sale, but there's less homes selling, so the supply grows. That's really what supply and demand is all about. Zillow released a seller report. It's the 2023 Consumer Housing Trends Report, and what I found interesting was the typical U.S. seller, the median age is 45, which I was a little surprised to see, and you know, it's older than the median age of renters, which is 39, and buyers, which is 40, but not that much older. And what that tells me is it's probably a lot of these people coming to the market. I look at where they are in their life. They're probably in a place where their home is too small for them, or they're getting a job relocation, because when you're in your mid-40s, you're either moving to get into a bigger home historically, or you're moving because there's been some sort of a divorce you mentioned, right? Or there's some sort of life event that happened. So it looks like some of these people are just decided I can't wait any longer, which would be a smart move for sellers, because as supply continues to increase, you might not be able to get these multiple offer situations with no inspections that have been kind of became the norm during the COVID market. So that was pretty fascinating to me. And 70% of these sellers are married or in a committed relationship. 15% were married in the past. 15% never married. And the median U.S. home seller sold a 3-bed, 2.5-bath single-family home with 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. So, and 7 out of 10 buy another home. 54% upgraded to a more expensive home. 31% downsized, and 14% made a lateral move. And over half of these people, they're seller buyers. They sell first and then buy, which I found that to be very fascinating, because I think that's a really tough thing to do. Balancing the buy-sell, but it's clear they have their equity tied up in their home and they need it to move ahead. So it looks like there's more folks that have been kind of waiting out the market are finally saying it's time for me to get on the market, is what I get my takeaways from this report. Did you guys have any other interesting pieces of data you got from this Zillow Consumer Housing Trends Report that just got released?
No, but I think that, that age.
Yeah, the age was
median
interesting.
Yeah. Huh. I did not know that. Yeah, I like all this data.
Well, it helps you navigate the market with your clients and yourself for your business, right? I mean, because if you're not, a lot of people think, I always want you want that really motivated seller. Well, what does that even mean? And in some cases, it might take some time for people to figure out what their actual plans are. So if you know who the typical U.S. seller is, it's a lot easier to cater to those sort of needs. So on that note, why don't we take a break? We're going to come back. There's been more news in this real estate commission saga that's been going on and on for years now, 4 years in the making. We're going to break it all down next. We got new attorneys. We got copycat lawsuits. And then we're going to wrap up with my favorite segment that we do on the show. It's once a year, Turkeys of the Year. This is Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. Welcome back to Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacey Mitchell. She's Sarah Timon. We have Nick behind the camera, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. If you get some value out of the show here, you like what you hear, do a favor for us and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications to make sure you know every time we go live, which is every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And make sure to drop a comment. So we've got more news about these commission lawsuits. And this is almost like the commission lawsuit era at this point. Before we get into this, how often have you had consumers bring this up to you?
Not really. I had one a little while ago.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. Yes,
I had one when I was making calls the other day. He was really quick to get me off the phone, and then I just said, "Hey, I just wanted to reach out, if you had any questions." And then he started, "Oh yeah, by the way, what's your take on the the lawsuit? How do you think it's going to affect the market?" And then we got into this 20-minute conversation. So. Knowing what
I thought he had to get
about.
off the phone.
I know
Stacey.
he did have to get off the phone, and then he was talking like crazy. So it was awesome. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. And it's something people want to talk about for sure. I've heard it a bunch, and one of the things that agents just need to be prepared for is how to respond to this. And it's not telling; it's asking. The number one question to ask is, "Hey, Stacey, what do you understand about the lawsuit?" And see what people actually know, because there's a lot of irresponsible headlines. We're going to get to this one the Wall Street Journal had that they put out last week, which was a joke, to put it mildly. This is something that is going to be an issue. I don't think there's any question about it. It's almost like what you could do during COVID. That was such a hot topic. It was, could you show homes? What were you supposed to do? And some people were working. Others were following the laws in Pennsylvania. So before we get into that, here's kind of the update. So there's a delay on the final judgment. So what's happened is that the latest news is that the time frame for post-trial motions is getting elongated. Big surprise there. So they have to be submitted by January 8th. What I found interesting is the defense hired a bunch of new lawyers, which they probably should, because I don't see how you lose this case. This was someone put out I think it was Jared James. He's a real estate coach, and he said that the lawsuit was not the plaintiffs winning. It's that NAR and the defendants got beat. They got beat in the lawsuit, and meaning that they were out-counseled, they were out-lawyered, whatever you're going to attach to it. Because, I don't know how you don't interview or have, interview's not the right word. I don't know how you have the agents that worked with these people not testify during that. Why is that not happening? Because most of the people said they were satisfied with their experiences. So Keller Williams hired a lawyer. His name is Paul D. Clement. He served between 2005 and 2008 as the U.S. Solicitor General and has argued over 100 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. Sounds like a good hire.
Wow. Yeah.
NAR hired Greg Gary. He's a partner at Latham & Watkins and a global chair of its Supreme Court and appellate practice. And he served under Clement as the principal duty Solicitor General and succeeded him as U.S. Solicitor General from 2008 to 2009. He argued 48 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. So sounds like a better hire than what they had. And NAR does plan to argue for a complete reversal of the verdict. Home Services retained a multinational law firm, and according to the website of this, they hired a guy named Theodore Boutros. He's argued hundreds of appeals, including before the Supreme Court, and has successfully persuaded courts to overturn some of the largest jury verdict and class actions in history. So these are some good hires. I think that's a good move. And then you got Michael Ketchmark, who just said, we're going to be ready for the appeal. That guy's pretty interesting. We can talk about him later. So we have new attorneys. I'm not surprised there. And now there's also these copycat lawsuits that have been filed. So in Texas, there was a lawsuit filed by a home builder as the plaintiff. I find that to be very interesting. Might be like Ryan Homes when they offer out a bag of nickels for you to go sell their houses, but they want to advertise them everywhere. And I find that very interesting for a couple reasons. One, I think it's a path for builders just not to pay commissions at all. They don't want to do it anymore, which will increase their bottom line. And in this lawsuit, they named real estate teams and individual real estate agents.
Wow.
That was a big deal. So what do you two think about all these developments here just over the past week or so with the new copycat lawsuits and the new hires for the Sitzer Burnett principals involved? You look a little alarmed, Sarah.
Well, I was just thinking, what if you got, I don't think this would ever happen to anybody on our team, but so specific agents were named for these are bad eggs.
I think anything's possible at this point, because that lawsuit, that verdict, I should say, really opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So everybody and their brother, sister, aunt, and uncle, cousin who thinks they have even the remote chance of this. Now, this all comes down to money. That's what it boils down to. So if anybody thinks they have a remote chance of getting anything, they're going to, it's not much to file a lawsuit. And if you find an attorney that's willing to represent you. But I think once it goes to appeals and if it's overturned, it'll probably be appealed again. But if it's overturned, then you'll see these lawsuits dropping off.
Yeah. I think that checks out.
But it's kind of scary thinking that as individual agents, we could have something like that pending against us.
Right.
That could be make or break. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
People that have to hire attorneys, it's expensive, you know?
Yeah.
It says a home builder and a magazine publisher. Who's the magazine publisher that's filed a lawsuit? And why?
Right.
Okay, well, I got to investigate that. Yes.
So the plaintiffs are the home builder, which it's the QJ Team LLC and 5 Points Holding, which is a holding company who's a business magazine publisher. So his name's Mark Home. Believe I'm pronouncing this correctly. Let's see what he's all about here. And I mean, I disagree a little bit, Sarah. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities for anything to happen because you can get sued for any reason that you want. I mean, the amount of lawsuits that have come through the door, it's pretty fascinating. I mean, just the stuff that goes on. So I'm looking at this here. I think this is him on LinkedIn. It looks like he is the president at Westar Associates. This is a CFO. This may not be him. So, we'll have to do some research on this. I think the whole point, though, is that you're going to see more and more of this. And unfortunately, when personal injury attorneys, some of them, they smell, and this isn't every one of them, but when they smell blood in the water, this is what they do. It's no different than these commercials that get run on television. So I'm not totally shocked here this is happening because the whole premise of this was that the training around scripting and commissions is what created the conspiracy for Keller Williams and Home Services and these companies that were mentioned. Well, we practice scripts and dialogues all the time. I can't say that we've ever said we're only charging X, although I do know brokerages in our marketplace that would not move off a certain fee in the past, and they're just not willing to do it. So,
but then it's like up to the seller has the right to go work with someone else.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm
so
talking
if you
about
stick with your number, whatever.
Right.
Is my thought.
Well, I agree with you. I'm telling there was a corporate policy.
Yeah.
These agents could not.
They were not.
Could not.
So they couldn't negotiate.
Negotiate. So this is very different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, your time's worth your time. I'm not doing this for less than blank. You can go get somebody else. I'm not willing to. It's negotiable.
Right.
I'm not negotiating. Right.
Yeah.
That's what that means. So this is going to keep going until these appeals happen. I think. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if you start to see some of these other things pop up. But it's someone that's got to have some money to spend too, because this is not cheap to.
Right.
To file these lawsuits. And
well, it would also be interesting to know, is it the individuals that are seeking out the attorneys to represent them, or some of the attorneys circle dialing the recent sales in given places and finding out, you know what I mean? Are they seeking them out and saying hey, I think I've got a suit here, sign on?
Right.
I don't know.
It could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
well, I mean, that very well could be the case. I mean, it's and to get class action, you got to get more than one. So that's that's a whole nother thing. I did find this guy's LinkedIn profile, and there is nothing on there. He's got
He scrubbed it.
well, I mean, literally, there's nothing on here. So that's pretty interesting. So then there's more to this though. There was a Wall Street Journal article that was published. I'm going to read you guys the headline here, just so you can see this, because I think it's a really poor headline. And we had talked a little bit about this on the Knowledge Brokers podcast. Tell me what you think of this headline. So it's on the Wall Street Journal, and it says that almost no one, here's what, I want to get this right here. Almost no one pays a 6% real estate commission except Americans. What do you think about that? This is the Wall Street Journal, who is in business with RealOrder.com, by the way. They're related companies.
Wow.
So do other countries pay more? No, I guess they're saying less, or it's.
They said most pay less, but Japan and other places don't.
Don't pay anything at all?
No, they pay the same. There's a whole breakdown in the article.
It goes back to, again, that it's negotiable, right? that the fees are negotiable and sellers can choose to work with whomever they decide based on the services offered. Isn't that like everything? And that's kind of like capitalism. You can choose who you want to work on your car, right? You don't have to take it to one designated service person. You can decide. You can negotiate costs according to that too. So I just I think that there has to be more clarity, I guess, about it. But it's always been negotiable.
Right. Well, and I think if you just suddenly start comparing to other countries, that's not apples to apples. Like, what do their taxes look like? What other pieces are involved? What other parties are potentially involved outside of, the agent? You know what I mean? Like,
do they have agents? Some countries do. I mean, how do they?
Right.
Do they just do a handshake and it's just buyer and seller?
Right.
There's so
I think it would be really difficult to do a straight apples to apples comparison between countries because of all of the other stuff.
You bring up a great point. So here's why this is a trash headline. Let me just be first and foremost. So the headline says almost no one pays 6% except Americans. Then they have a chart based on Professor Norm Miller and Chad Silverson from the KBW Research and Shorefield, and it shows the typical brokerage commissions worldwide. They have the U.S. listed at 5.5%, so it's not even accurate. Here's what's more inaccurate. Housing Wire did a study on this. The average real estate commission paid by a seller in 2022, last year, was 5.32%. So it's now become an 11% embellishment by the Wall Street Journal in their headline, right? Imagine if you were off on your closing cost estimates for somebody and said, hey, Sarah, I know you and Eric thought you were only going to owe $100,000 to buy this house. It's really $111,000. I would be fired.
Yeah.
I mean, right? And so this is a major challenge, number one. It's one of the big problems. I have a lot of things to say about this headline. I got to keep it clean for the radio here. It's a trash headline, right? It's a clown headline. Then, on top of that, you look at this. There was this flyer in CoStar's booth at NAR Next. And it said, Realtor.com's sister company is against real estate agents. And I have all these Wall Street Journal headlines where there's home sellers take on the realtor cartel. Realtors face antitrust reckoning. I just shared with you the headline that was recently published. And if they go on to say, if they're your partner, why are these articles on the Wall Street Journal? And News Corp owns Realtor.com and the Wall Street Journal. So I found that to be very fascinating. And then on top of that, there's this on Housing Wire, and then I want you guys to react to this. The CEO of CoStar, Andy Florence, who's very verbose, right? He comes out and says what's on his mind. He wanted to set one thing straight, that his company had nothing to do with the commission lawsuits now rocking the real estate world. And he said, we had zero involvement with that lawsuit. We learned about it from NAR long after it started. And a report released by KBW before the verdict was announced identified CoStar as the top beneficiary of a change in the buyer-agent landscape because of their unique business model. So there's all these conspiracy theories flying around right now, especially given the interviews that Michael Ketchmark has given, because the man looks unhinged. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And now Inman's having him speak at Inman Connect in New York to interview him and really pry. I mean, what is going on here? It seems like there's a lot more going on than just people feel like they were wronged based on the testimony, and now all these, and usually where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm-hmm. I feel like I have a tinfoil hat on right now talking to you about this.
Nothing is surprising anymore, but if once all the smoke clears, we will find out what's really, what is underneath all of this. And it all boils down to money and control of the market, right? There's been so much, in the past, most recent 10, 20 years, people trying to upend this industry, right? Yeah. Especially with tech companies, and there's just disruption. There's so many outside forces wanting to disrupt this industry. Right. And it all boils down to money. Right. So this headline that realtors face an antitrust reckoning. Like, don't you love these headlines?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And also, like,
home
the
sellers-
lawsuit that's rocking the real estate world. Like,
Right.
it's something to be aware of, but I would not say it is currently rocking the real estate world.
the realtors cartel. It's like
Dude, I could, like, it's always, like, interesting, though, if there is, like, a funny, not funny, but, like, conspiracy theories, and, like, going down. It would be, like, interesting if the smoke cleared and there was some, like, huge, crazy, like, maze of things. We could talk about that on the show.
yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to find out. This is like who killed JFK.
Yeah.
There is a lot of conflicting things though here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When like Realtor.com and the Wall Street Journal are interconnected. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's a lot to this.
Yeah.
And you control the message,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're putting out all this information, hoping that the consumers get this information and the
Right.
consumers catch on and they start to make their own changes.
Mm-hmm.
But what I know is what I do is I try to help people.
Yeah.
We're out here trying to help people make big life moves
Right.
in probably the largest transaction of
Yeah.
their lifetime. And that's what it comes down to. It's,
Yeah.
it's that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. Now, Sarah, you mentioned something else here, and I think there's a really valid point. You talk about like what's going on in these other countries. So the U.S. has way more agents than these other countries. So to give you some perspective, this is from the Wall Street Journal article. So we will trust them, even though they have a really bad headline, because I think that's most people right now, unfortunately. So if you look at the number of agents in the U.S., we know that there's 1.6 million. In Canada, there's 160,000. In the UK, there's 48,000. And in Australia, there's 35,000. So the number of active licensees corresponds with the number of active agents, obviously. But that's a lot of agents compared to these other countries. And the U.S., 89% of people in the U.S. use a buyer agent. The rest of the countries are like 33%. Meaning they don't have buyer agents. What I'm clear on, though, is I think part of the challenge here is that there's so many agents in the U.S., right? And the average agent makes $30,000, $40,000. That's the average. These other agents, they're having to do way more volume to make a living, which in part of this is I do see that there's going to be like the hobbyists, the part-timers, hey, I'm doing 3 deals a year and I got another job. They're going to be out of a job in real estate because people will not tolerate this anymore, especially if they're having to pay a fee or just they're responsible for it, or it's on their radar that they have to actually like talk to agents. So what I find interesting about all this is that I see a lot of opportunity for people that are really serious about their business. A lot of opportunity. This is no different than when like accountants got in a lot of trouble, the Sarbanes-Oxley stuff when they were for cooking the books. This is back in the late 90s, right? And all those things happened. I don't think it's that different if you're really serious about your business. If you're one of these hobbyists or you don't like making phone calls, you're allergic to the phone, or you're allergic to working more than 15, 20 hours a week, those are the people that should be out of the business. And I think we will see the numbers shrink down dramatically because that entitlement to, hey, I showed the house, I'm due a fee, that's gone now. People are asking this question. I've had to come up in listing appointments I've been on. I've had to come up in phone calls. We've seen that there are $0 co-ops now being offered in the marketplace already, and we're having to navigate that. And if you don't know how to do that stuff, and then all of a sudden the buyer's on the hook for something they didn't realize, it's not going to go well.
Yeah, I think the hobbyists could be some of the folks that they just keep their license because they might have a family member that wants to buy or sell.
Mm-hmm.
So they might do 1 or 2 transactions a year.
Yeah.
I think, we come across people like that, right, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
And you do their job for them anyway.
Basically, yes.
Yep.
And,
I'm being nice.
and you can tell
Mhm.
there is a big difference in the way that transactions flow as opposed to when you work with an agent that it is their full-time thing and they do, many transactions a year.
Right.
There is a big difference when that happens. But I think you're right. The hobbyists, as this continues on, they will probably say, just hang it up.
Right. But to be fair, for anything that would come along and be either more work or disruptive to being able to do things the way they were, probably maybe would have been enough to have them hang it up.
Yeah.
Well said. So what I see coming out of this is that this is going to be an appeals for a while. Nothing has changed. I want to be very clear. Nothing has changed yet. And if people can't effectively explain that to consumers in a way they can understand, that's where hobbyists have a hard time. They start going down this black hole of like, well, if this happened, then they don't really know what they're talking about. So let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk some turkey here. Sarah Timon is ready with her number one turkey of the year. Next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. She's Stacy Mitchell. We have Nick Wolf behind the camera, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And if you get some value out of the show here, especially this next segment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on the bell for notifications, give us a like, and we'll make sure to keep you updated on the latest happenings in the real estate market. So it's Thanksgiving in 2 days, ladies. We do this every year. I think the first year we did this, you were like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. I think we had to remind some people on the show this week. I did this on Knowledge Brokers, but Turkey of the Year. So if you don't know what that means, if you look up the slang for turkey, not like the Urban Dictionary, that's not where you want to go. It's slang, and it says a dud or a loser are the two definitions here. I like talking about this, especially in real estate, outside of real estate, because everyone talks about like man of the year, woman of the year, highlight of the year. What about the worst things that happened?
Well, can I revise mine to like the biggest bird news of the year?
Whatever you want to do, Sarah.
All right, I'm going to do it that way.
Biggest bird. It's not like a flu or something.
Biggest bird news. No. So New Zealand had a contest this year to vote on Bird of the Century. So that's exciting. And John Oliver on his show was talking about it and was voting for the Puking Putakete, and it won. So by a landslide, I think partially from his promotion. So
what does this bird even look like?
Let's look him up.
Okay, how do you even spell this?
All right, it's Puking and then Puteketeke. I mean, it's going to be a good-looking bird, I think.
Wow.
Bird of the century, it's got to be.
How did you know how to enunciate that?
I don't know that I did. I think I threw in a couple extra atekis.
Oh my gosh, it's a bird that vomits.
Oh my gosh.
Are you serious?
That's what it says. Yeah.
So it's puking, not Puking. It's
Wow.
puking, whatever kind of bird it is.
Why would New Zealand? Why would they? Okay. Wow. Maybe they felt sorry for him because he won overwhelmingly as the bird of the century. Wow. He vomits.
The bird
grunts,
got so excited,
Yeah.
it threw up.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been there.
That's pretty
I have not, Sarah. I can't say that's happened to me.
So excited.
It's actually a pretty bird. I found a picture of him. He kind of looks like a swan, but with a brown and black plumage around the head. Interesting.
Yeah.
Never heard of him. See, we learn something new every day, right?
Yeah. So that's my bird news.
All right. A puking bird for Sarah. That's Sarah's turkey of the year. It's the puking bird. Very interesting.
There you
Well,
go.
my turkey of the year would be Bob Goldberg. Do.
So we know who he is. Tell everyone who he is. Tell us why he's your turkey.
Oh, Lordy. So he is the former chief executive officer of NAR, one of our largest trade associations for realtors. He's slated to retire at the end of 2024. And it's just he's staying there because of money, obviously.
Oh, he's out. He's gone.
Oh, he's gone? He left?
Yeah, he resigned.
Oh, that's right. He did. Anyway, the guy is just dirty as they come. We talked about this numerous times on our radio show here, too, what he's done. There's just a cloud of just grimy stuff around him, like all kinds of sexual assault allegations. Not just one, but what was it, 17, 25? I don't know the last count.
In an industry that has more women than men in it.
Right.
I personally have a real problem with that. So I agree with you here.
And he didn't even kind of tried to even reconcile it. He kind of like waved it off like it was nothing. Eventually, the pressure got to him and he was forced out. So he's my biggest turkey, bringing down our whole industry. I mean, people have a perception of real estate agents anyway, or misperception, but something like that surrounding the CEO of this big trade organization that represents realtors, and he's like the slimiest of all.
Yeah, we don't need that.
So
Gone.
all that stuff is a great reason for him to be Turkey of the Year. And then on top of it, they totally fumbled the Sitzer Burnett case.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I do not understand how they went from, hey, it's not a big deal in 2019 to, and we've been talking about this for years on the show. As long as we've been doing this show, this comes up every once in a while. It went from, hey, it's not a big deal, nothing to worry about, to, oh, we're going to reverse everything we passed in the 1990s. And the defense was, he was talking down to the jury. It just was on top of the personal problems that I think are a bigger issue overall, just in terms of, not just being a horrible human being. Then he also didn't do his job for all the 1.6 million agents that are out there. So
Right. And making that huge salary. Ugh. That's where our dues go.
when we don't sell a house, we get fired.
Yeah. Right.
He can't even protect the people he's supposed to protect or the people that work for him. And you've heard of the circle of safety, right? So you got to worry about the inside threats and the outside threats. Well, the president, that guy, Kenny Parnell, I mean, it's wild to me. Great turkey.
Gobble,
Unfortunately,
gobble.
yeah, I guess. All right, so here we got a minute left here. I put a poll on Instagram. Here, I asked everyone, and I'll give you mine. Sitzer Burnett Jewelry.
Yep.
NAR.
Yep.
Zillow. Me. Tom Sandoval. I apparently that's a Bravo celebrity. I've been getting DMs about this. Bethany Frankel, the broke agent.
Oh.
Mitchell and Ness for not making enough Princess Diana jackets. Mainstream media. That was that thing sold out in like 10 seconds.
Yep.
None of these are my turkey of the year. Michael Ketchmark, number one of the biggest hypocrites out there, because he is a personal injury attorney that gets paid by the other side when he wins a case, right? Buyer agents get paid when they sell someone's house, but he's got a problem with that. Horrible, just big turkey of the year. That's what I got. I
like
can't even
that
finish
one.
it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So that's what we got. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. You want to follow Sarah? She's at Ty_Ty Time on Instagram. You can follow Stacy at the number 2 Mitchko. You can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD. And please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Give us a like. Hit the bell for notifications. And we'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.